The novice doctor was frantic in the delivery room, seeing that the woman was about to give birth. The doctor ended up delivering the baby right in the hallway. Recently, Oh Yi-young received a call from the bank informing her that the loan repayment deadline had passed. Currently, she owes the bank 50 million won and has no means to repay. The bank offered an extension on the loan term, provided she could present proof of employment. Unfortunately, Oh Yi-young was unemployed. Although she once claimed that her career did not align with her interests, she had to reluctantly return to work to pay her bills. The next day, accompanied by her sister, Oh Yi-young returned to the hospital where she had interned. She had been a glamorous intern from a wealthy family, but her father went bankrupt last year, and she had caused trouble at the hospital. Now the only hospital willing to take her back was her old internship site. Her sister advised her to endure any humiliation from old colleagues and keep working at the hospital until she had repaid the 50 million won debt. With reluctance, Oh Yi-young returned to the hospital and went to the duty room for new resident doctors in obstetrics and gynaecology. Despite her previous internship, Oh Yi-young was clearly still a novice, as were the other 3 new resident doctors. One was the top student from medical school, who joined obstetrics and gynecology after reading a professor's paper. One was a high school classmate whose hair was half dyed and whose name Oh Yi-young couldn't remember, and one was a former idol turned doctor. All seemed challenging to handle. Oh Yi-young, eager to finish her shift, slowly walked to the elevator. Today, she was assigned to assist Professor Seo in the operating room. Her colleague, Pyo Nam-kyung, revealed that Professor Seo was very critical and difficult to please. In the operating room, Oh Yi-young clumsily put on her protective gear, only to realize she couldn't see anything because the protective film on her goggles hadn't been removed. Professor Seo approached and had someone remove the film, leaving Oh Yi-young utterly embarrassed. Professor Seo completed a cesarean section. Afterwards, Oh Yi-young realized she had been standing idly with a pair of unused gloves, unlike the other doctors whose gloves were stained with blood from the surgery. At lunchtime, Oh Yi-young went to the cafeteria and was joined by her senior, Gu Do-won, who helped her with her meal. Her first question was about the time she could leave work. Learning that she couldn't leave on time today, Oh Yi-young looked utterly despondent. In the afternoon, Oh Yi-young was again assigned as Professor Seo's assistant. Distracted during the surgery, she hesitated about where to place the cut-off sutures. This hesitation earned her a scolding from the professor. Senior Gu Do-won tried to signal her with his eyes, but Oh Yi-young misunderstood the cues and kept holding the sutures, leading the professor to dismiss her from the operating room, along with the sutures. The other 3 resident doctors also had tough days. Pyo Nam-kyung, who had always seen Oh Yi-young as a rival from their high school days, secretly rejoiced over her performance. However, when Pyo Nam-kyung had to handle an emergency case herself, she was more nervous than the pregnant woman. Another, Kim Sa-bi, the top student from medical school, showed no empathy towards patients. When a patient cried out of fear before surgery, Kim Sa-bi, emotionless like a robot, mechanically read the surgery consent form to her. When a patient hesitated to sign and questioned why she got cancer despite living a good life, Kim Sa-bi bluntly stated that living a good life and cancer had no causal relationship. Then there was Jae-il, a former idol turned doctor, who mistook a nurse handing him a patient's report for a fan and autographed it with his stage name. Jae-il was the most diligent in the duty room, constantly busy with rounds, asking questions, and taking notes. He tended to overreact, imagining a simple runny nose as a basal skull fracture, which exhausted his senior colleagues. Finally, the 4 resident doctors reached the end of their shift. Oh Yi-young nibbled on a dry piece of bread and listlessly entered the elevator to go home. In the elevator, senior Gu Do-won comforted Oh Yi-young, who yawned wearily and warned him not to mention their relationship in the hospital or talk about hospital matters at home. It turned out that Oh Yi-young and Gu Do-won were related by marriage. Specifically, Gu Do-won was the brother of Oh Yi-young's brother-in-law, making him her uncle by marriage. Despite the warning, he soon discussed Oh Yi-young's day at the dinner table, embarrassing her in front of the family. Oh Yi-young also learned that she was not actually qualified to work at the hospital and had been hired through her uncle's abuse of his position. Before she finished dinner, she received a call to return to the hospital to handle a maternity case. Oh Yi-young was even more convinced that being a doctor was not a suitable job. The next day, a sleep-deprived Gu Do-won, still yawning, personally taught Oh Yi-young various precautions. However, Oh Yi-young remained listless. When a nurse called for a doctor outside the duty room, Oh Yi-young pretended not to hear until she was discovered and reluctantly went to see the pregnant woman. In the delivery room, the pregnant woman, who was actually expecting her second child, asked Oh Yi-young to keep it a secret and tell her new boyfriend it was her first pregnancy. Oh Yi-young watched in disbelief as the pregnant woman lied to her boyfriend about it being her first childbirth. To support the pregnant woman, Oh Yi-young reluctantly went along with the lie. The boyfriend thanked Oh Yi-young with a cake, which she and her colleagues casually nibbled at after Jae-il took a photo of the meal. Before they could finish the cake, their busy day resumed. Oh Yi-young checked and mistakenly thought the woman who lied about it being her first childbirth was fully dilated and in urgent need. She hastily informed Professor Seo, who quickly moved the woman to another room. Upon further examination, it was found that the woman was in excellent condition, not fully dilated. Professor Seo glared at Oh Yi-young, whose temper, not the patient's cervix, was the only thing fully dilated. Gu Do-won was exhausted from helping his juniors when Oh Yi-young called about the same pregnant woman, now in a seemingly real emergency. Gu Do-won quickly instructed Oh Yi-young to move the woman to the delivery room and rush to assist. Unexpectedly, the woman began to deliver earlier than anticipated. In the hallway, Oh Yi-young saw the baby's head and promptly put on gloves to deliver the baby right there. Within seconds, the baby was safely born. Holding the newborn, Oh Yi-young was overwhelmed with emotions, as this was her first time delivering a baby. Gu Do-won arrived just in time to cut the umbilical cord, and Oh Yi-young was moved to tears. As Monday arrived, the busy life of the first-year resident doctors resumed. After a full day, it was already 10 p.m., which was their earliest finishing time recently. Before leaving, they had to take turns reporting the day's activities to a demanding senior who required them to start over if they misspoke. With 5 surgeries that day and 7 planned for the next, Oh Yi-young felt overwhelmed. During Professor Seo's reading group the next day, everyone but Kim Sabi, the top student, was dozing off or fiddling with pens, listless and distracted. Only Kim Sabi was alert, helping the others with answers. After rounds, Oh Yi-young quickly found a moment to listen to music in a corner. However, her break was cut short by a call from Dr. Myung, informing her that a woman was in labor pain and needed an urgent cesarean section. Oh Yi-young rushed back to coordinate with the anesthesia department. After securing an operating room, she called Dr. Myung, who advised her to reserve a spot in the room and would bring the patient in. Half an hour passed without the patient's arrival. The anesthesia doctor started to push, but Oh Yi-young discovered Dr. Myung had casually taken another patient to the ward instead. When questioned, Dr. Myung acted as if nothing had happened and did not mention the surgery. The anesthesia doctor then criticized Oh Yi-young, suspecting her of lying to secure the operating room. Oh Yi-young, feeling wronged, had to bear the burden alone. Every morning, Oh Yi-young has to take a photo and check in with her group, always showing a bitter expression. Her workload is becoming unbearable. Occasionally, when Oh Yi-young forgets to send a photo and explains to Dr. Myung, the doctor accuses her of lying, infuriating her enough to hang up the phone. Frustrated by her senior's treatment, Oh Yi-young angrily packs up to go home, declaring that she may be broke but she's not without pride. Just then, an emergency alert for the obstetrics department is issued at the hospital. Hesitantly, Oh Yi-young decides to go to the scene and performs emergency aid for a pregnant woman. Thanks to her intervention, both the mother and baby survive. For the first time, Dr. Myung praises Oh Yi-young and advises her to continue monitoring the patient's vital signs the next day. After completing all the tasks assigned by Dr. Myung the following day, all Oh Yi-young can think about is finishing her shift. However, her uncle by marriage, Gu Do-won, finds more work for her, asking her to accompany a pregnant woman being transferred to another hospital. The woman's condition is stable, not requiring much attention from Oh Yi-young. Essentially, Gu Do-won's request is an excuse for Oh Yi-young to get some fresh air. Unexpectedly, the woman feels unwell during the transfer. Oh Yi-young quickly contacts Gu Do-won, who instructs her to relax and perform the standard checks. After conducting the necessary examinations and still concerned about the woman's condition, Oh Yi-young arrives at the destination hospital but doesn't leave immediately. Instead, she waits to ensure the woman is all right. Fortunately, the doctor taking over informs Oh Yi-young that the patient is fine, relieving her. Oh Yi-young breathes a sigh of relief knowing she couldn't forgive herself if anything had happened to the patient. The female doctor invited Oh Yi-young for coffee and shared her stories from when she was a first-year resident. Like Oh Yi-young, she was often flustered and reprimanded by her seniors, but unlike her, she had not prioritized the feelings of pregnant women. In contrast, Oh Yi-young always put the patients first, achieving what the doctor had not in her early years. After their conversation, the doctor handed a document to Oh Yi-young, instructing her to pass it to Gu Do-won. Oh Yi-young did as told, but Gu Do-won found that the document was actually just a blank sheet of paper. Understanding the doctor's gesture, Gu Do-won suggested that Oh Yi-young stay to observe a twin delivery surgery. Just as Oh Yi-young was about to respond, an anesthesiologist approached, criticizing her for unclear communication in English regarding anesthesia. Oh Yi-young, feeling downtrodden, not defend herself. At that moment, Dao Yuan stepped in to defend Oh Yi-young, asserting that her communication had been clear. The anesthesiologist then brought up a previous incident about Oh Yi-young allegedly hogging an operating room. Gu Do-won defended his junior, confident that she wouldn't lie for an operating room. After clearing up the misunderstanding, Gu Do-won assured the anesthesia department on behalf of Oh Yi-young that such incidents would not recur, and cautioned them against overstepping their bounds in criticizing new doctors. Moved by her uncle by marriage standing up for her, Oh Yi-young bowed in gratitude to Gu Do-won at the end of the day. Gu Do-won, concerned that Oh Yi-young might quit, walked up close and whispered a reminder not to forget her debt of 50 million won. His actions, somewhat affectionate, caused Oh Yi-young's heart to flutter. The other 3 new doctors were also exhausted. Pyo Nam-kyung was assigned to change a patient's dressings, and the patient was particularly demanding, insisting on punctual dressing changes and requiring Pyo Nam-kyung to change gloves and tweezers throughout the process. The patient's demands left Pyo Nam-kyung on the verge of tears, and she quietly complained to a nurse. Despite her complaints, the patient insisted on having Pyo Nam-kyung handle the dressings. Pyo Nam-kyung served the patient with a forced smile, like serving a deity. During lunch, a nurse called urging Pyo Nam-kyung to return within 10 minutes. She hurriedly ate a few bites of her meal without even wiping the stains on her clothes. At the restaurant, she bumped into an old classmate who was well-dressed and about to get married, making Pyo Nam-kyung feel miserable by comparison. Frustrated, Pyo Nam-kyung told the nurse over the phone that she would no longer change the patient's dressings and that the patient should find someone else. After her outburst, Pyo Nam-kyung took off her work badge and got into a taxi. However, she soon received a message from the nurse asking her to tidy the patient's room. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, she quickly returned to the hospital. In the room, she found the patient absent, with 2 relatives crying loudly. Thinking the patient was critically ill, Pyo Nam-kyung was ready to change the dressings one last time, only to turn around and see the patient standing behind her. She had just moved to another room. Pyo Nam-kyung, overwhelmed, cried as she changed the dressings, fearing the worst. The patient apologized, explaining that her illness often affected her mood, and she hadn't considered Pyo Nam-kyung's feelings. Pyo Nam-kyung managed a tearful smile. Meanwhile, Kim Sabi, the top medical student, remained emotionless and robotic. She spoke to the patients in a logical and rational manner, which upset one patient who bluntly told her that Kim Sabi was not suited to be a doctor. A senior doctor criticized Kim Sabi and asked her to apologize to the patient. Kim Sabi felt devastated and doubted her capability to continue in medicine. Fortunately, Professor Seo offered her advice, encouraging Kim Sabi to focus on her strengths and avoid her weaknesses. In the evening, Kim Sabi once again approached a pregnant woman, seriously analyzing her health and warning that she might have symptoms of epilepsy. The woman did not believe her, and just as she turned to walk away, fainted due to the symptoms. After the woman regained consciousness, Kim Sabi shared her determination to be a doctor. The woman subtly apologized and expressed hope that Kim Sabi would handle her second pregnancy. However, Kim Sabi missed the hint and continued to speak in medical jargon until the woman, somewhat exasperated, reminded her. Finally, Kim Sabi smiled, apologizing and expressing gratitude to the woman. Jae-il, meanwhile, felt ignored by the seniors. The busy hospital and wards seemed not to need him. In the evening, his colleagues called him, urging him to return because they needed him. Excited, Jae-il rushed back to the hospital, only to find out they wanted him back just to join them in reporting to the seniors. However, that night, Dr. Myung unexpectedly told the 4 residents that they no longer needed to report after their shifts. Unbeknownst to them, Senior Gu Do-won had been working behind the scenes to ease their burden. On Sunday, Oh Yi-young suddenly proposed a barbecue outing with her family. However, her brother-in-law, Gu Do-won, had to visit the hospital unexpectedly. If he couldn't go, Oh Yi-young would cancel the outing. After being cared for by him several times, Oh Yi-young developed feelings for him. On Monday, Oh Yi-young rode to work in Gu Do-won's car and deliberately talked about her various preferences. In contrast to Oh Yi-young's rich hobbies, Gu Do-won's life was bland, filled only with surgeries and writing papers. Perhaps for this reason, Gu Do-won couldn't help but compliment Oh Yi-young, calling her the most fun girl he had ever talked to. Realizing this was how she appeared in her brother-in-law's eyes, Oh Yi-young felt devastated. As work began, Oh Yi-young's distress returned. Before starting work, they were called for a meeting by a senior. Oh Yi-young naively thought she could suggest improvements for resident doctors, like salary adjustments. However, at the meeting, she realized it was a criticism session targeted at her when the senior read a complaint from a professor about her, such as yelling and not arriving on time for surgeries. The senior pointed out the flaws of the 4 new doctors. While Oh Yi-young felt wronged, Dao Yuan arrived with breakfast and discovered the session. He reminded the juniors to avoid such meetings in the future and to provide positive support and encouragement to new doctors. Today, Oh Yi-young learned from a professor treating a young female patient with uterine cancer. The professor informed that the patient might lose her uterus post-surgery. Despite the news, the patient remained smiling and optimistic, while her mother, worried, cried continuously and was comforted by her ailing daughter. After work, Gu Do-won came to the duty room to invite the doctors for a meal, but only Oh Yi-young agreed. During the meal, as Gu Do-won had to watch a surgical video, he ate quickly and hardly spoke to Oh Yi-young before putting down his chopsticks. Oh Yi-young started to complain, as she had hoped for a romantic evening with her brother-in-law. Gu Do-won hurriedly apologized, seemingly unaware of her feelings. After work, the professor scolded Oh Yi-young for delaying the surgery, which she felt was unjust, as the delay was not her fault. At that moment, the patient's mother came seeking Oh Yi-young's help to check on her daughter in the ward. However, the daughter was fine. The mother had only intervened to help Oh Yi-young escape the professor's scolding. The mother, seeing Oh Yi-young about the same age as her daughter, envied her for being able to make mistakes and grow during the best years of her life. She wished her daughter could also have the chance to grow up healthy. The mother was moved by her daughter's resilience and decided to stay optimistic and no longer cry. On the day of the surgery, the daughter comforted her mother as usual, and the mother, as promised, tried hard to hold back her tears in front of her daughter. However, once alone in the operating room and touching the cold surgical table, the daughter shed tears. She was not as fearless or strong as she appeared. Her optimism and bravery were all for her mother. Seeing the daughter's tears, Oh Yi-young called the lead surgeon to delay the surgery, giving an excuse over the phone. Even though she was scolded again by the professor, she took it willingly. Fortunately, the surgery was successful, and the daughter's uterus was saved. Oh Yi-young immediately went to the corridor to inform the patient's parents of the good news. The mother, hearing her daughter was safe, cried tears of joy, and Oh Yi-young, witnessing this scene, also shed tears in front of the family. That day, a man hurried to the hospital after hearing his daughter had fainted. However, during the examination, he discovered that his daughter was not ill but had concealed her pregnancy. Shocked, he scolded his daughter, who had just started university, worrying about how this might affect her future. Unfortunately, the pregnancy was too far along, and the child would have to be born. It wasn't until after the daughter gave birth that her boyfriend hurried over. The man furiously scolded the boyfriend for being thoughtless. Kim So-bi noticed a slap mark on the boyfriend's face. The boyfriend explained that he had wanted to bring his mother along, but she had refused. He looked at the newborn with concern for his girlfriend's postpartum condition. Seeing the boyfriend's responsible demeanor, the man calmed down slightly. At night, watching the new life that had just been born, the man smiled. Kim So-bi congratulated him, noting that at least the daughter's boyfriend was a decent young man. Still, the man felt a bit sad. While the birth was a joyous occasion, to him, this child seemed like an angel who might delay his daughter's life. Kim Sabi picked up items the man had thrown away from the trash can and handed them to the young woman. Inside was a postpartum gift and a note from her father, expressing his hope that she would turn to him for anything she needed. Reading her father's sincere words, tears streamed down the young woman's face. Kim Sabi smiled knowingly, believing the young woman would surely receive love from both her father and boyfriend. On the day the obstetrics and gynaecology department took their annual group photo, Gu Do-won stood next to Oh Yi-young. He never expected that at the moment the shutter clicked, Oh Yi-young would quietly take his hand. From that day on, Oh Yi-young could no longer hide her feelings for Gu Do-won. When her sister came to see Oh Yi-young, she mentioned that her husband planned to introduce Gu Do-won to a female colleague from his company. However, according to her sister, Dao Yuan had refused the matchmaking. The sister was concerned about Gu Do-won's love life and inquired with Oh Yi-young if he had any romantic interests in the hospital. According to Oh Yi-young, Gu Do-won was not dating anyone within the hospital. Although she did not admit her feelings for her brother-in-law to her sister, she had recently been persistently pursuing him. She told him she hadn't had breakfast, only to receive a few pieces of bread he passed her. Despite this, Gu Do-won remained gentle towards Oh Yi-young. She worked as Professor Seo's surgical assistant, with Gu Do-won also part of the surgical team. After losing research data, Oh Yi-young was harshly reprimanded by the professor. She decided to remember the professor's lessons, but Gu Do-won advised her to forget the scolding and focus on the surgery at hand. Oh Yi-young nodded, but during the procedure, she accidentally cut Gu Do-won's hand with the scalpel. Fortunately, Professor Seo completed the surgery calmly and smoothly. Feeling guilty, Oh Yi-young apologized with her head bowed. Dao Yuan gently assured her not to worry, as such incidents were not uncommon in the operating room. Nevertheless, Oh Yi-young insisted on seeing his hand, but Gu Do-won withdrew it as if avoiding her. At that moment, an emergency case arrived at the hospital, a pregnant woman with infectious chorioamnionitis. The 20-week-old fetus could no longer be saved. The woman, heartbroken, had previously experienced a similar loss. She begged the doctors to let the baby stay inside her for one more day, wanting to be a mother for just one more day. Professor Seo could not agree, as each additional day increased the mother's risk. Professor Seo explained the circumstances privately to the husband. Considering the wife's safety, the surgery had to be performed as soon as possible. The husband agreed, reluctant to lose the child, but unwilling to see his wife decline or carry guilt for an unborn child. The surgery went smoothly, and the 20-week-old fetus was removed. Oh Yi-young carefully held the underdeveloped child, and she was then tasked with checking for any cardiac abnormalities in the fetus. Seeing the fetus's heart still beating, Oh Yi-young felt deeply troubled and told Professor Seo she couldn't perform the examination. The professor reminded her to set aside personal feelings and prioritize the mother's decision. Oh Yi-young nodded obediently, but still struggled to proceed. Fortunately, Gu Do-won comforted her. In front of him, Oh Yi-young slowly shared her past experiences. She had previously encountered this pregnant woman in another hospital and witnessed her struggle and pain after losing a child. Gu Do-won gestured with his hands, explaining that a 20-week-old fetus already resembles a healthy baby with breath and heartbeat, and naturally, it's hard to let go. But what can be done? Doctors can never truly decide the fate of life. They can only strive to help the mother and child, which is their duty and purpose in the hospital. Gu Do-won's words helped Oh Yi-young to let go of her worries. Holding the 20-week-old fetus, she slowly walked to the operating room where Kim Sabi would join her for the examination. Actually, before the check, there had been some issues between Oh Yi-young and Kim Sabi. Professor Seo planned to write a paper and sought an assistant from among the 4 new resident doctors. If successful, the assistant would have a chance to travel abroad for a conference with him. Hearing this, all colleagues except Oh Yi-young, who was distractedly playing with cookies during the meeting, raised their hands to volunteer. Seeing this, Professor Seo chose Oh Yi-young as his assistant. Oh Yi-young, not wanting the role but feeling unable to refuse, accepted it reluctantly. Afterward, Kim Sabi was upset because she and others had accidentally seen chat messages between Oh Yi-young and her sister, indicating Oh Yi-young was considering resigning. Kim Sabi couldn't understand why the task was given to someone who didn't want to continue working. In frustration, Kim Sabi formatted the files on Oh Yi-young's computer, leading to the loss of the research data Professor Seo had entrusted to Oh Yi-young, resulting in her being severely scolded. Kim Sabi, secretly pleased, was convinced that the professor would now choose her to replace Oh Yi-young as his surgical and paper assistant. Contrary to expectations, the professor requested that Oh Yi-young assist him in all future surgeries. Kim Sabi felt uneasy about this. When Oh Yi-young was away at lunch, Professor Seo left a note reminding her to send certain data to him in the afternoon. After hesitating briefly, Kim Sabi dropped the note on the floor. Later, feeling guilty, Kim Sabi tried to mimic the professor's handwriting to return the note to Oh Yi-young. However, Oh Yi-young said she had already sent the required data to the professor. Kim Sabi was surprised, but soon realized that Oh Yi-young might have seen her throwing away the note. Indeed, Oh Yi-young had witnessed Kim Sabi dropping the note. Embarrassed, Kim Sabi was unable to face Oh Yi-young, who pretended not to know anything and claimed she saw someone else pick up and reattach the note, never mentioning Kim Sabi's name. Moreover, Oh Yi-young brought up the matter of the 20-week-old fetus, hoping that Kim Sabi, the top medical student, could assist her. Realizing Oh Yi-young's goodwill, Kim Sabi immediately agreed to help. Before the examination, Oh Yi-young was uneasy, so Kim Sabi led a prayer for the fetus, believing it would go to a better place. Oh Yi-young felt reassured and began the fetal examination with Kim Sabi. Before leaving work, Kim Sabi apologized to Oh Yi-young, who casually dismissed the matter. Just then, Jae-il came to invite everyone to dinner, and this time, no one refused. Oh Yi-young returned to her locker to retrieve something she had left behind, only to see the happy group photo of the obstetrics and gynecology team already posted inside her locker.